Welcome to Sharing the Light, the Sunshine Cathedral's talk show webcast where we discuss theological, ethical, spiritual, and social issues with the cathedral's pastoral staff. Sunshine Cathedral is a metropolitan community church affiliated with the Center for Progressive Christianity. We're located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, we hope you will enjoy this episode of Sharing the Light.
Welcome to this episode of Sharing the Light. I'm Durrell Watkins, the senior pastor here at the Sunshine Cathedral, MCC, in Fort Lauderdale. And joining me today is staff minister, Reverend Brian Hutchison, and another staff minister, the Reverend Dr. Robin Provis. And so we're here today to look at the question of could we ever be lost? A lot of times religion seems to be presenting itself as trying to save people from being lost, or save people from their depravity, or save people from some sort of afterlife terror. And we're wondering if those of us who have a more progressive take on religion might understand that a little bit differently. So really, could you ever be lost? Is there anything to be saved from? Is there any loss to be? The psalmist said, even if I go into the netherworld, the pit, where they thought, the depths of death, even if I go there, God is there. If we believe in an omnipresence, if God is truly omnipresent, then how could we ever be lost from God? How could we be separate? How could we ever be separate from something that is said to be omnipresent? If I can be lost, God isn't omnipresent. And if God is omnipresent, I can't be lost. So where do we get this lost thing? Either we don't believe that God is everywhere, because God's not going to lose me if God is everywhere. And so either I don't really believe that, or I need to get over this fear of I can somehow be separate from the God who is everywhere.
It's a good question.
I think our lostness is an illusion. But it is a very, very strong illusion when it seems that so many people in the world are continually trying to convince us of our lostness. And so even with all of the evidence that God is ever present, we continue to hear those voices, especially from those who we've known throughout our lives, who we love the most and who we respect the most even, continue to give us messages of lostness. And so it takes progressive communities and spiritual communities to help us to come out of this illusion of lostness and into an awakening.
Now, I know you had an experience in California with sort of charismatic and Pentecostal people, and you were talking recently about an experience in the Midwest you had with a group of LDS people, and so you're actually a very good sort of ambassador to conservative, and so I do want to ask you about that, because a lot of us have been very wounded, very hurt by this exclusionary, that because you are gay, God doesn't love you, or because of your inter-religious relationship, your loved one may be excluded, or and just we've been terrorized by this, that somehow we can be cut off from the very source of life, and that separation can be eternal, and of course that would be tormenting, and yet when I have these discussions with evangelical friends, they never see themselves as being, they're always surprised to hear that anyone would see that as hurtful. It's because that they will say, well, we do recognize your sacred value, and we love you so much that we want to include you in the savedness.
We are all in the boat, and you are not.
Yes.
We need to get you into
We don't
our
want
boat.
you. We're throwing you, exactly. We're throwing you a lifeline, and so they don't see. So how can we fix this disconnect? They think their motivation is out of kindness, and yet the impact can be devastating. And when we tell them the impact is devastating, sometimes they're hurt. And so how do we fix this? How do we get this, that, okay, we don't think anyone is lost, and we understand that your motivation is to make sure that no one is lost. So maybe we understand things differently, but how do we bridge that gap between understandings? How can they share with us the reality of their faith without damaging our psyches? And how can we share the reality of our faith without telling them that they're mean old monsters that have ruined our lives? How can we do that?
Well, I think we suffer from the same problem. So I like the question of could we ever be lost, because it's like a litmus test. Because I think we need to take our pulse sometimes, because being lost, I think, is possible, but not in the way that they would articulate it, because I think being lost is an inside job. And
Where am I? Where am I?
There is an old episode of that black and white show, the Dick Van Dyke Show, when he's moving too fast, he's had a really bad day, he's just ranting at Laura, and he's eating all the while, and after he finally has wound down, he says to Laura, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. What's for dinner?" And he goes, "Rob, you just ate it." And he goes, "Well, what about dessert? What's for that?" "Well, Boston cream pie." "Darn, and I like that too." I think we get so caught up that we don't really look closely, and if we are children of deity, children of energy, then that God is within us, and you cannot be separated from you unless you're checked out.
Yes.
And we've all been there at times. So to reflect on lostness, I think, can bring us back into synchronicity with the divine within us. I think opening a conversation with our evangelical friends that is how we believe, and that our definition, because often the question that comes out of attempting to bridge that gap is, well, then what's the point of the gospel? Well, the point of the gospel is that God invites us to become whatever we are not yet.
Yes.
Christopher Dreisen's famous quote, which I will never forget, because I needed, with all of my training, something to replace the "I need to save you" kind of construct. So I think we can be lost, but not from God.
Right.
I think God is always there. The old analogy that if you and I are on the phone and I think you're not there, well, I guarantee I'm the one who probably hung up or set the phone down, not you.
Yeah.
Same with God.
It's interesting that one of the most powerful texts in the book of Acts about this very thing, it's in God that we live and move and have our being, Acts 17, that is actually Luke saying that Paul is saying but Paul quoting the Greek poet Epimenides, a pagan poet, that this gospel message is using from some other tradition, saying, see, you already know this because your own poets have said that it's in this omnipresence that we all live. And so so we see even in our of course Luke Acts is sort of an extension of Luke's gospel. So even in this gospel message we see this affirmation of we can find God everywhere. Even even Epimenides, he knew it, and it's like that. So maybe there's just so much more common ground, and of course there would be if it's in God that we live and move and have our being.
If we are all in with and through God, and vice versa, that mutuality is what needs to fill the space when we open a conversation.
Of course, in Miracles reminds us of the creation story where it says that that the scriptures tell us that Adam fell asleep. And it never then says that he woke up. And so I'm wondering about how much of you say illusion, I like that, right. That how much of it is sort of this bad dream we're having, and we just need to wake up. That's the whole sort of Buddhist thing, is that a Buddha is someone who has sort of woken up, to enlightenment. And so that we need to wake up to, oh, God's right here. Where else could God be?
And in a way, justification by faith, the Protestant kind of benchmark, is the same thing. It's not, instead of using the language of waking up, it's the language of acknowledging that which already exists.
I love to say when people say, by grace through faith, and I always say, but does it ever occur to you that it's God's faith? That God believes in us, God trusts us, and that's the grace that saves us. Not that if I have to do something, well, it's no longer grace. So the grace through faith, what does that mean? Well, the grace is that God believes in us unconditionally. God trusts us, because we're made in God's image. God calls us very good. So we are saved by grace through faith, but it's God's faith. And that's as present as God is.
And that's the damaging Kool-Aid that many of us have drunk, is that everything is, if you do this, then you unlock the blessing.
Right.
Well, how about the blessing is just yours?
Exactly.
Because of who and whose you are.
Looks like he agrees.
I do. I'm reminded of this conversation about the Wizard of Oz. It seems like, Dorothy being in this dream and realizing after this crazy journey that, you just had to click your heels 3 times and wake up.
Oh, I could come home.
And realize you were there and you were there,
And the being lost really was a real place. Really, I was gone, Annie M. No, you weren't, dear. You were here all along.
You were here all the time.
But you were there and you were there and you were there.
Exactly.
Reverend Jay Johnson, professor at PSR, says that it is really our goal in life to be at home with ourselves, with God, and with our neighbor. And I'm reminded of that too, is that we're not lost, we are always at home, and I think it's our journey to realize how much at home we are.
And if we're feeling lost, then that is a sign for us to kind of check back in and recenter ourselves in God's peace.
The votes are in. You're not lost. You're all good. You're made in the image of God. God loves you just as you are. And that is the good news. Thank you for joining us on Sharing the Light. If you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, join us at Sunshine Cathedral. We'd love to see you, and we wish you many blessings on your spiritual journey.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode of Sharing the Light. Tell your friends about this online ministry, and when you're in Southeast Florida, make sure you worship with us on a Sunday at the 9 a.m., the 10:30 a.m., or the 6 p.m. service. And now for a final word from our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins.
Email me at durrell@sunshinecathedral.net if you have a religious question or if you'd like to subscribe to our daily devotional magazine, Spirit and Truth. We'll send it anywhere in the United States for an annual donation of any size. You can also email us prayer requests, or you can make donations on our website, www.sunshinecathedral.org. You'll also want to check out our great performing arts series, religious education classes, conferences, and other exciting activities. For now, we wish you many blessings on your spiritual journey.